When one has had a life where luck was in short supply, one can either stand in awe at a brief moment of good providence, or seize it immediately before it vanishes. Selphist, fortunately for him, did the latter. For once wishing his pincers actually were as important as others kept claiming, he lunged forward with what momentum his tail could build on dry ground, and grabbed her with spindly legs, pulling her to him so he could crush her against his spine-covered body before she could react. That was the trick with Mancers, he had always heard. When one gets past the seemingly godlike power of their magic, they are actually pretty pathetic creatures. Their outer skeletons are soft and gooey. Their limbs don't have a particularly strong grip or any sort of natural weaponry to make up for it, and they can't even latch onto walls or breathe underwater. Selphist couldn't latch onto walls either, but how could a land-bound organism be so pathetic? On top of that, they were usually pretty weak. In a fist fight, Secton beats the Mancer every time. If one could get past the godlike powers of their magic. The necromancer grabbed one from his legs, and it took all he had not to retract in pain as it started to decay as if dead a long time. Still, Selphist held firm, keeping both her hands occupied on the rotting spell as his legs continued to tighten, slowly draining her of breath. She looked tired. Her gasping, desperate features stared at him, frustration and disappointment in roughly equal quantities sketched on her features. "What quarrel do I have with you?" she asked. The unexpected question was far from enough to make Selphist lose his grip. "I want the ant for a personal mission. You don't need to understand." The necromancer would probably lose consciousness in a few minutes. Selphist was overjoyed. This had gone incredibly well. Viserys, after a brief tour through the tunnels with the squiggly lines, has successfully found his way to the tunnels with the triangular lines. This normally would not have been much of an accomplishment, but he happened to notice a fallen piece of clothing tinged with black. It was the type of tinge one might have gotten from barely surviving a pyromancer attack. "The male ant is mine, as is whatever money we can get the queendoms to cough up. And peace. Not being slaughtered by ants and wasps is normally a good thing." Using the cloth to give himself a vague sense of direction, it was a surprisingly short time before the dragonfly came upon Nedra being grappled by the lobster. The male ant was slowly backing away from them both. Its eyes swiveled back and forth. Trying to figure out where to go. This actually works out quite well for me. He swooped down and grabbed the ant while the other two were distracted with one another. And the dragon snatches the princess. Or at least I think that's how Mancer tales go. The little male was heavier than expected, and Viserys found it difficult to fly with his regular efficiency. While trying his best to gauge in under a few seconds whether it would be best to struggle with it or just use his legs, Selphist screamed, threw down the necromancer, and leapt for Viserys. The latter dropped his target and easily dodged Selphist's blow, but as the lobster continued to strike, their squabble came to an impasse. Selphist had never fought something so fast, and Viserys had never tried to pierce a shell that was so hard. So busy were they with both of these dilemmas that neither noticed Nedra grabbing the male and running with what little strength she had left until it was too late. The will to survive is a powerful thing. Nedra had overtaxed her magic, was horribly bruised, had lungs that were almost crushed, and was trying to carry a struggling Secton through a series of seemingly impassable tunnels. If only the lobster had tried to kill her rather than simply strangle her, she might have gained the strength through death. With the unconsciousness, it did too little with how much magic she had used. There has to be a spider in here that secretly supports the tarantula. Akmar's tortures. There has to be someone I can intimidate into letting me out of here. There actually did not have to be, for they were large tunnels and, thanks to clever design and hydromancer magic, required surprisingly little maintenance. It was not necessity then, but luck, that she happened to stumble upon a crab reapplying some worn-down mortar to the smooth brick layout. If the two got into a real fight, the crab would almost undoubtedly win. Nedra was too weak to call upon any of her real magic, and between his hardened shell and massive pincers, she couldn't have taken him in a fistfight on one of her better days. She decided to gamble on the fact that he wouldn't know that. "Get me out of the city, or die." Her gamble paid off. The crab did seem to try and think through his chances, but he overestimated the mancer and told her, "Follow me," rumbling in a voice he probably thought she couldn't hear about how everyone uses people as their punching bags, how no one would have done this kind of crap to the people of the Crustacean Islands. She briefly wondered if he was old enough to even remember the Crustacean Islands, or just overly fond of stories from his elders. Probably the latter, but then decided she didn't particularly care. Just need him to get me to the exit. Once there, I will be free. Silly Nedra, when are the pursued ever free? "She's getting away, you moron! Is that shell choking your brain?" Viserys was not certain that the lobster heard this last insult, which, considering it was one of his less clever, was probably a good thing. But the fact that his prize was escaping was sufficient to break the insane crustacean out of his blind rage for a second. Then he channeled it in the direction Nedra had fled. Thinking of the potential riches, and perhaps for a second of not letting the psychopath beat him, Viserys flew after him, quickly overtook him, and searched for any signs of Nedra and her prisoner. Nedra had no idea how the crab could possibly find its way around the tunnels, but it seemed to do so rather effortlessly. Through a series of twists and turns that would quickly have left her hopelessly lost, the trio wandered to the edge of the city. It wasn't long before they found a tunnel with rising water levels, a fact which only seemed to make the crab more mobile while Nedra wallowed in her increasing misery. The male ant actually managed to get more paralyzed in fear. She was really concerned about the sound her feet were now making with their splashes, and whether or not the crab might think about the fact that necromancer such as herself would be slightly hindered in the water, whereas he would be right at home. Luckily for her, none of this seemed to matter. After a grueling half of an hour, she was led to an exit. Joy refreshing her energy, she leapt down with her hostage and soaked in the glorious sun, enjoying her newfound freedom for almost 2 seconds before a mantid attacked her. Gilstop had read quite a bit about necromancers, and how to fight them in his time. He had never applied the knowledge before, and thus had let most of it slip away. As such, it took a few minutes to consider why wounding rather than immediately killing a necromancer, particularly one who had been exhausted after nearly being crushed to death, with one of her hands free, was a horrible idea. It had been his plan to damage the arm holding the hostage. This way, she'd have to let him go and he could grab the ant and leave before the situation got worse. Unfortunately, he had forgotten about the whole gift of the ever-dying god and being close to death thing, and how horrible bleeding, for whatever reason, was disproportionately recognized as bringing one close to death. While the ant slave ran away, and the crab ran back into the tunnels, Nedra opened her decayed and rotting hand and released the energy of what resembled a half-formed crab. Okay, I read about this. She's creating an image of someone who died in the general area, but she doesn't seem able to complete the image. Nedra took her functioning hand and ripped at the wound Keelstop had left, opening it and spilling more blood. Although the action left her screeching in pain, it also brought the glowing green facsimile of a decaying crab's corpse to full fruition. This is not good. Similar to most mantids, Keelstop had excellent reflexes, and was easily able to dodge the flurry of pincers and legs, and he was normally rather good at finding the perfect target to land a well-placed blow and finish an enemy quite efficiently. What he didn't have was the ability to hurt the devoured thing. These ghosts could only be harmed by certain substances, and he didn't have any of them on him. Touching it would only cause him to rot. The other option, killing the necromancer, also seemed out of the question, for this was moving faster as Nedra lost more blood and was taking everything he had just to stay alive. He would dodge a pincer just to have a leg come up underneath him. He would twist out of the way of that leg just to have the crab try to crush him beneath the body. He would leap out of the way of the body into the valley below where he had nothing to grip. Stuck on dry ground, Killstop saw no genuine options as the monstrosity lurched toward him, grown to a ridiculous size with blinding speed that no living crab could match, waving its cracked pincers, brown waste mixing with the drool dripping from its grin, seemingly uninhibited by the sandy surface of the valley's ground. Killstop could still theoretically jump, just not far with what his feet had to work with, not far enough to escape the ghost. Just as the creature came upon him, just as he was preparing to decide whether an impossible flight or an impossible fight would be the better last-ditch effort, the ghost disappeared. The fact that he was going to live elated him. Then he realized the reason it disappeared was because Nedra had gotten too far away from it. And a quick glance, yes, she has the ant.